kidney problems feel it in their kidneys. People with lung problems feel it in their lungs. Next slide, please. At Elixinol, we came up with the saying, CBD is good for me. And as I have mentioned, many customers have written to us to tell us why they believe CBD is good for them. People with lung problems feel it in their lungs. At Elixinol, next slide, please. Another 10-year-old young lady from Australia with epilepsy. A 7-year-old female from Australia with epilepsy. Please go to the slide with 1971 on it. 1971. Another 10-year-old young lady. Despite claims in the media that there is no research and trials are needed to determine if CBD could be a viable medicine for epileptics, placebo-controlled, randomized, double-blind human trials have been conducted as early as the 1970s. Medical World News reported cannabis is probably the most potent anti-epileptic known to medicine. According to the World Health Organization, 50 million people suffer with epilepsy worldwide. Next slide, please. This is a picture of me with Charlotte Figge, a little girl in Colorado, USA, who had the plant Charlotte's Web named after her. Charlotte's parents told me that they had tried every anti-epileptic drug there was. They didn't stop the seizures and caused damage to Charlotte's brain and body, even causing her heart to stop at times. CBD stopped the seizures immediately without any negative side effects. Her parents told me, even if this didn't stop the seizures, we would never stop giving CBD to her because of the other ways it has benefited her mind and body. Next slide, please. This is Dr. Blair, who we have on our staff in the USA. He has been using our CBD oil with his patients as well as conducting other research. And the reports we get back from him are very promising. Here are some examples. Next slide, please. Dr. Graveline is an 83-year-old retired NASA astronaut from the USA. Next slide, please. A 68-year-old female from the USA with psoriatic arthritis. An 82-year-old male with dementia, PTSD, and diabetes. In the next slide. Who had improved social interactivity, strength, energy, reduced tumours, and improved cognition. In the next slide, a 59-year-old female from the USA with pain and cigarette addiction. Next slide, please. Helping someone to defeat a cigarette addiction may sound hard to believe, yet new, randomized, placebo-controlled, double-blind human research from London has proven that CBD does lessen the addictive craving and anxiety that usually makes quitting so difficult. The results were clearly evident by the end of the first week. The scientists of this study concluded CBD is a potential treatment for nicotine addiction. It is interesting to note that a synthetic cannabinoid was also trialled for overcoming nicotine addiction, and it started working. However, it had to be discontinued due to causing depression and suicide in the test subjects. Next slide, please. Genius inventor Thomas Edison summed it up well when he said, "There were never so many able, active minds at work on the problems of disease as now, and all their discoveries are tending towards the simple truth that you cannot improve on nature." Next slide, please. So, CBD from the real plant seems to be very safe and very effective, yet some authorities are saying it is not. Next slide. If you watch television in Australia, someone from the government or medical establishment will appear and repeat the same three claims. We don't know if it's safe, we don't know if it works, there's no science to support it. Are those claims true? Next slide, please. As some of you may know, the US government holds 2 patents on using CBD as a medicine. In their research, the government scientists concluded no signs of toxicity or serious side effects have been observed following chronic administration of CBD. Next slide. And this, CBD is an anti-epileptic and anti-anxiety. The absence of side effects allows very high doses to be used. Next slide. And this, CBD is not toxic, even when chronically administered to humans or given in large acute doses. Next slide, please. Dr. Lester Grinspoon of Harvard University began studying cannabis in 1967 to explore the supposed dangers. He came to the conclusion that misinformed and misled. Next slide, with some beer, please. In contrast to this, every year the number of deaths due to consuming alcohol is 3.3 million. Next slide, please. Cigarettes. Cigarettes give 6 million deaths. That's one person dying every 5 years. These two legal drugs kill the equivalent to double the entire population of Sydney, Australia every single year. Next slide, please, with the risk of death in Europe. This chart contains data from multiple European governments to show what people are actually dying from and how many people are dying from each different cause. As expected, cigarettes and alcohol are major causes of death, but have a look at what the biggest causes are. Next slide. The number one cause of death in Europe is, click, preventable medical injuries in hospitals. Next down the list is, click, pharmaceutical drug side effects. Way down the bottom, beneath, click, being struck by lightning is, click, dietary supplements, and, click, herbal remedies. So, we're being told to trust hospitals and prescription medicines. Click, the number one cause of death in the Western world. And we should fear hemp, which has not killed anyone in 5,000 years of unsupervised use. I don't understand this message. Perhaps someone can explain it to me. So, if CBD is so safe and effective, in this next slide, why such opposition by the medical establishment? Next slide. The two drugs that make the most money for drug companies are pain and mood disorders. Now consider the most well-researched and understood properties of CBD are, click, relief from pain, anxiety, and depression. In this chart, in the next slide, lists the use, side effects, and mode of action of the world's top 10 selling drug. Most of the world's top selling drugs act by targeting a cell receptor known as a G protein coupled receptor, listed as GPCR in the chart. In fact, 40% of all the pharmaceutical drugs in the world work by targeting the G protein receptor. Next slide, please. So, if G protein receptors are where the money is, where are the most prevalent G protein receptors in the human body? In his article, The Endocannabinoid System as it relates to autism, Dr. Bogner says cannabinoid receptors are the most prevalent of any G protein coupled receptor. They're the only ones to play a direct role in virtually every aspect of the human body. Next slide, please. So, to summarise, putting all this together, modern medicine makes most of its money from drugs that target cannabinoid receptors. The side effects of these drugs are a leading cause of death in Western countries. Cannabinoids from hemp activate these same receptors without causing harm. Drug companies stand to lose $80 billion in profits each year if people stopped buying their drugs. Next slide, please. The good news is that hemp is really breaking down the walls of persecution, and the public is finally starting to learn the truth. Next slide, please. Me and Phil. I believe the evidence is clear. Cannabinoids from industrial hemp are safe and highly beneficial, and I think we have barely scratched the surface of what health benefits this plant can offer us. So far, we have only been discussing CBD, and as you know, there are many other cannabinoids worth investigating. We are interested in working with other companies to make our quality cannabinoid extracts available to as many people as possible, and believe now is the perfect time to be getting involved with the rapidly developing CBD industry. Next slide, please. Expanding product line includes powders, capsules, tinctures, and other airless natural delivery devices. Next slide, please. As well as various grades and concentrations of standard bulk CBD oil and water-soluble products, we have a number of research and development projects underway in the USA, Australia, and Europe. Next slide, please. Come visit us at a trade show near you, or at our headquarters in Boulder, Colorado, USA. Final slide, please. I hope you found this information interesting and useful, and that this might just be the start of you're interested in CBD and other cannabinoids from hemp. Thank you for listening. Please contact us at elixinol.com for a copy of this presentation or any questions.
So,
enjoy the World Hemp Conference.
Thank you very much, Paul. Greetings in Australia already. I will take words to the audience. Audience, some questions for Paul? Yes.
Enjoy the World Hemp.
Yes, the second.
Hi Paul, it's Francesco speaking. I would like to ask you a question about, well, since there was a little bit of scattering from your voice and the slides, could you please repeat the discourse about, on the slide, talking about endocannabinoids and phytocannabinoids, please? Could you please repeat the discourse about, on the slide, talking about endocannabinoids and phytocannabinoids, please?
Sure. What I was saying on that slide, number 24, reminder, that it is important to note that the body can produce a limited number of its own cannabinoids. At least 5 of these endocannabinoids have been discovered. That's the ones that your body can produce itself. A phytocannabinoid is something that comes from outside of your body. And it's one of the 100 cannabinoids coming from the hemp plant itself. I hope you could hear this time. Sorry, I've got my mouth full of pencils, sorry. I've got a question. You said with regards to the statistics on the drug companies would lose something like $85 billion if people stop buying drugs. Now, one area that I've not seen with regards to climate change is because where most of these drug companies get their sources for their remedies is from plants, and that's money is relying on patents. And there's a term for this, which is the way they get a lot of their plants is I suppose it's called biopiracy. So my question is that would you agree another way to actually solve a lot of the climate change problems we have is when people stop buying drugs, then it will have a positive impact on the forests and the biodiversity that these companies are getting their plants from, and it would also positively impact the communities as well. I'm sorry that I cannot hear you very well. It's very hard for me to hear your question.
Would, when people stop buying pharmaceutical drugs, indirectly have a positive impact on the forests and biodiversity where these plants come from?
Okay. Well, when people stop buying pharmaceutical drugs, I think it will have a very positive effect on many things, including biodiversity and where natural plants are grown. My concern is that if we stop buying pharmaceutical drugs, the pharmaceutical companies won't just stop doing anything. So it depends on their reaction to what they do. I'm hoping that the pharmaceutical companies, with all their power and the many billions of dollars or trillions of dollars in the world, will invest in supporting sustainable plant-based medicines and see the sense in that. So that is my idealistic view.
Well, within that idea,
We will see. Rather than stop pharmaceutical medicines, I prefer people focus more on the positive and focus more on creating these biodiverse landscapes and sustainable agriculture and using plants as medicine as we have for many thousands of years. And remember that this works often without much less side effects than the pharmaceutical medicines that exist today.
So thank you very much, Paul. Audience don't have any questions anymore for you because you are so great and you tell anything and we think about it. We must work cooperatively so that world will go faster to the better side. Paul, we expect you next year in Slovenia. That you will be part of
I hope to see you in person next year
that you will be part of World Hemp Congress Live. And now greetings in Australia and be very well. Bye bye, Paul. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.